Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Hertz Market Trade Group, and it is Wednesday, March 30th, and this is your end of day video. Hey, and the sound's on this time. I double checked it. I'm joking around because yesterday there was no sound on yesterday's video. By the way, it's good to kind of laugh a little bit, right? Some of these videos that I do at the end of the day, all day kind of what we do, it's sometimes it can be a little bit dry. Make sure that you are, I don't know, telling jokes a little bit. Of course, getting up and walking around during the day, getting some type of, exercise in. It could be kind of stressful to sit in front of a computer all day long, day in and day out. So I do kind of, I try to laugh sometimes in the TTG trading room. That's something that when I was on an institutional trading desk too, where, the majority of the day it's heavy, it's intensity. You need to laugh a little bit. And, some of the guys that I worked with back on the institutional trading desk back at Merrill Lynch, we worked hard and we played hard. It was it's good to make sure that you do that, on a daily basis. So just kind of a quick note. Also, the reason why I mentioned that too is I just think people are really serious, right? you open up Twitter and like it seems like people are really stressed out. One of the things that I talked about in the trading room today is that at this point, right, and after has it been more than 2 weeks? Probably somewhere around a 2-week rally in the market. You should be a little bit looser, right? You should be taking more profits. You should be knowing that the market doesn't go straight up or normally straight down. And you should be just kind of aware that some of the things that we've talked about basically every day this week, I feel like beating a dead horse with some of this, but quarter end, month end, right? The market is going to be whippy, just like we saw today. Right. So it should not be a surprise. You shouldn't be like, oh, what is going on? Right. You should know that there's a lot of stuff that goes on at the end of the month and especially at the end of the quarter. So that's what I would expect tomorrow. Now, if we get a couple really good day trades, some news, some type of news like we got today with the there was a nice headline out today about Biden's going to be spending more money trying to get materials, and you saw a lot of it for electric vehicles, for EVs. So you saw a lot of like the lithium names go up. You saw the rare earths name MP go up decently. We'll go over those charts in a second. So you may still get that tomorrow. So I think that'll be good to note. But you may also get this type of thing, right? And also this type of thing in the VIX, right, where it's going to be pretty jumpy. I mean, we really haven't seen too much of this in the last couple of weeks, right, with a move up to 2050 and a move down to 19, like that. So, finally, a little bit of movement here. But again, these things are all normal. Like, I find it always funny that some traders who are, I think, either more bullish or more bearish, they're looking for the market to just do the same thing every day, right? That it's not going to do that, right? The market isn't supposed to do that. I was joking around the other day because somebody asked me a question. It was about a week ago about a name that was down 6 or 7%. And I looked at the name and it's a high momentum name, and high momentum names will move like that without any news on them. So I always get the question sometimes when a name is down. But when like the next day, that very same name, or 2 days later, when the name was up 7 or 8%, nobody asked me why it was up. Right. So, when you're traffic, especially, I think, considering what we've seen this week in some of the high momentum names that many of them had no news whatsoever. Right. It's just a lot of buying that's going on, or, possibly short covering in some names too, which can really be the move. But if you are in and trafficking in those names, right, your position size has to be adjusted, right? And that's a whole nother conversation, a whole nother video, because a high momentum name is very different than trading like, a name that's in the Dow or a name that's in the S&P, for example, right? So position size is important because there's a volatility component to every name. So in any event, I wanted to talk just generally about a couple of things, but let's go over the price action for the day. So yes, we did see a little bit of volatility, and look at what the small caps did today. They did basically the opposite of what they did yesterday. So if you watched my video yesterday, you knew that I took targets, and I was very happy about this trade from yesterday. And this is exactly why, by the way, that I decided to, where's my final target in this thing, right? I took this thing off for more than a double yesterday, this IWM trade. And I believe in yesterday's video, I had to reshoot it. So I don't know if I covered this, but I think what I said was I took this thing off, right? Even though it was way above the strike, because it expires tomorrow. I said the risk to reward was not beneficial for given, sometimes how fast IWM can move, to try to get the last 250 of this trade for a $10 wide call spread, even though the price was way above, right? The risk is that you could lose the whole 750, right? And then you take, a double that you had in the trade, and it becomes a loser, right? So what did I do? Like, I rolled a portion of the trade, right, to the 2150, 2160. But look at where IWM is. It gave the whole damn thing back. So why am I going over this? Because bottom line is, no one knows what's going to happen day to day, and I talk about this all the time. I think that newer traders, they are looking for somebody to try to tell them what's going to happen, right? Predict what's going to happen day to day, right? And as you get older as a trader and more experienced, you begin to get more secure with the fact that you don't know what's going to happen on a day-to-day basis, and it's more about risk to reward. So that's a good example of a trade that I'm not going to pat myself on the back, but I just think a lot of more experienced traders think like that, right? That you don't know what's going to happen. Where, can you lose more keeping that trade on versus more than you can gain? Yes, absolutely. And that's why I took that trade off. And that's the way that you have to think about things day to day, right? It's always a game of uncertainty that we're dealing with, right? And being disciplined and being a risk manager. So that's kind of the main topic for today. As we saw the market pull back a little bit in volatility. At one point, the VIX went over about 20.5 today, which we've been under 20 for the last couple days. So it's just a reminder that anything can happen in this market, and you've got to adjust to, in my opinion, right? And again, here's the risk disclaimer. I'm not giving any advice or recommendations, but in my opinion, if you've been trading for a while and if you've learned this, you have to adjust to the market. You can't say that the market is wrong and you're going to stay right. It's the opposite, right? The market is always right, and you have to adjust to it, right? It's not going to do what you want it to do. Okay. So, yes, I did think that for us to see a pause here makes sense. In a perfect world, and this is just the value area so we're using volume at price here, of course. And in a perfect world, and this is a little bit too cute, but I would like to see us stay above 45.62. Now, again, once we get out of March, the next value area will actually be all the way down here. Which is kind of interesting because it's another value area that's actually going lower versus going higher. Notice when we were in an uptrend, what you see is these next period value areas have been climbing. So this one is actually lower. So it wouldn't, I wouldn't be all that surprised either if we didn't hold this first level of support, 45.62. That we might see some type of retracement down here. Anything is possible, right, in this market. Now, if that scares you, what do you do, right? And again, it does depend on what your view is, right? But so that would be my game plan, is to see like, okay, maybe we can hang in here, right, and stay above the 5-period. The top of value coincides right now with the 5-period moving average, which I love to use. That's the one that I've got highlighted. But it's not really highlighted that well, but it really helps me capture the short-term trend. And when we lose when we lose that 5-day moving average, then we know that we've lost the momentum in the short term, right? So we're still above there. And I think that'll be something to watch in the coming days, right? Don't forget, once we get through month end and quarter end tomorrow, the first of the month, Friday, we get a jobs report, right? And it's the first of the month, which sometimes we see new money put to work. So it's going to be interesting. I think the remainder of this week, right? I think it's going to continue to be to be bumpy, right, with this market. All right, so that's that. I don't know if I mentioned the 5-minute value area, just kind of back and forth, maybe a false breakdown for the day, and back in the lower range. Nasdaq, I wanted to point something out, something that I may have glossed over in yesterday's video. We're at a really interesting point here in the Qs, and it's, again, I'm kind of interested to see. I don't have the answer. I'm interested to see whether or not the Qs are going to have any rally after this, right? Are they going to be kind of capped by this 200-day moving average? Also, when I switch over to the weekly chart, notice where we are, right? We've rallied, we went down to the point of control. So what I'm doing is I'm looking at the weekly chart, right? And the weekly chart, you have a value area for the whole year, right? So this won't change. Every month, if you're going back on the daily chart, those value areas will change every month, right? But on the weekly chart, the value area will stay the same for the whole year, because that's based on this volume profile that I'm trying to highlight here that's in the background, right? So that's based on all the price, it's based on all the volume at price for last year. And the time is the important thing, right? I know some traders use these volume shelves and so forth that they put on the side of the side of their chart. I don't think that that's the best thing to use, in my opinion, because you're not associating volume, price, and time, right? So so again, to reiterate here, why this is important is because this won't change for the year, and it's based on all of last year's price action, right? What's different is when you do these volume shelves, is your time is not consistent, so the calendar year is important, right? And as you can see, this resistance point will probably be significant, right? And that's the whole key, is that's why we're looking at these, because we know that they're significant, right? When you provide those three together, volume, price, and time, 369.18 will be a very important level to watch in the Qs, right? Right. And if we switch over, I already talked a little bit about IWM, but notice that we stalled here, but likely 214.39 is going to be an important level, even though, that's not too far away. That's only $7 away. And I don't know exactly, you could maybe say that we found some resistance here. I was looking for this to go a little bit further. On the plus side, when you look at the 1 hour, notice I go back and forth between the 1 hour chart, the daily chart, and the weekly chart. And sometimes for super short term, I use the 5-minute, because that gives us a value area for the day. The 1 hour chart gives us a value area for the week. So 206.76 is where we actually came back into. So again, tomorrow's probably going to be tomorrow, and of course Friday will be very interesting. Now, again, think about positioning. There's a lot of moving parts the next 2 days. Do you want to be fully, involved in this market, or have a few trades on, right? That's, again, you have to ask yourself. All right, so a couple charts that I wanted to go over. All right, and the first one I'm going to go over just a consumer staple that's interesting to me. This is Altria. Right. I think this is interesting because, again, it may be after we've had this, rally in all the meme stocks and a big bounce in a lot of names that have been in big downtrends. My philosophy is on all these names, a lot of tech names, a lot of momentum names, a lot of growth names that rallied from the lows, like a PayPal. Right? Of course they can bounce from the lows, but you have to watch to see if they're going to change the trend, right? Something like this is still in an uptrend, and right now is trending, right? So 20-day moving average held here and bounced. So again, boring name, but I think it's interesting. Let's get into a couple of these names that saw some big option activity today. LAC is the first one. I love this move off of this, putting in a little bit of a type of bull flag or pennant digestion, and then it went. Same thing with LTHM. I don't know why I didn't trade the LAC. I traded this LTHM. I like this chart pattern too. Break out of value, test back to the top of value, and let's see if this thing wants to go. Of course, MP was a star today, although it did not close on its highs, but still holding the trend. A couple names I traded today were AOSL. Clearly, that's not a good close, and I got rid of this name today. Now, again, it's why you take targets. I was 1 penny away from hitting my $70 target, which would have been my third, but hey, it is what it is. And then, normally it was holding in here until about 1 o'clock, and it started to give way. So I'll return to that one if it gets back above 65, 66. Again, all about levels, right? Great idea, worked, right? But the price action is not confirming for me. Micron I thought was interesting too. Gave back the whole move on for earnings day. So again, not exactly what you want to see. Especially if you're thinking that you're going to see pin action in the group because the name had really good earnings. Well, it gave the whole thing back, right? So so not too great in the semis group. All right. Just a couple other names too. Sorry, I'm trying to remember who I saw this chart from on Twitter, because I always want to give people credit, right? It's important to give credit. Like if you find a chart from somebody on Twitter, make sure you give them credit. It's important. They will go back and they'll thank you for it, right? Be honest. So this chart comes from, I'm going to use my own analysis here, but I retweeted Ryan Pierport, who is a really good trader. I think he's been in the top, he was a top performer in the 2020, 2021 U.S. investing championship, right? Something that I participated in last year too. So Cloudflare is what he tweeted about, right? I think this is interesting. This is one that's acted pretty well the last couple of weeks. It is a little bit of a cyber name too, right? So this is one that I'm going to be watching, right? And I think if it holds in here, right, if you kind of have to understand that there's a 200-day moving average in here too, and it's back testing a little bit of this. So this will be one, this will be a good one to watch for growth. Weekly, it still has some more work to do, but you could take a target at 138. It also came in and back tested the top of value, right? So this will be a great one, I think, to watch for growth, right? And then, maybe a few of the other cyber names too. I went long some, speaking of cyber names, I went long some CYBR, right? I like multiple time frames here. It's very close. So the week isn't over, but I would love to see this thing close above 170 or 169.50. I always go a little higher, 170. Right. So this is at a decision area. So I'm long. I took one target in this thing today, and we'll see if it can go, can move above. One other point to make too is that, we heard the opposite headlines. Basically, we heard the other day about Ukraine and Russia, right? That the negotiations didn't go well. Interesting that we just didn't see that big of a move in oil. One of the charts that I've been watching is this this oil volatility index, right? So just like the VIX is for the S&P, there's a volatility index for oil, right? And this didn't really pick up on the headline today. So I don't know, sometimes, it's better to watch. I always think it's better to watch the price action than the news, but the oil did not really gear up here, right? And it didn't get into the value area. So I tweeted this chart earlier this morning and I said, hey, watch 108.74, right? If oil gets back above there, then you know that this crisis is getting worse and supply issues are getting worse. If it doesn't and it starts to fade away from here, the worst may be in, but we'll see. So far, it's still gliding along the trend. and that's a 50-day moving average. It could just need some more digestion too. And if you look at some of the energy names today, right, they were not as strong as they were on the dip yesterday, right? So where did XOP finish for the day? Right, just up slightly and actually sold off through the session. So not the same. So again, I always look for things that stand out, that are different than what we've seen, right? Previously, whenever we see headlines that, hey, negotiations failed, right, oil rips to the upside and the energy stocks and the agriculture stocks and a few of the other areas go with them. We didn't see that today, right? Gold, GDX was still, GDX and the agriculture names were still strong today. Like CF Industries was strong, but it didn't have much follow through, right? It got up to 105 and actually gave back. So could be that some of these areas are getting a little bit tired, right, after some huge moves, and maybe are in need of a little bit digestion. I'm going to end this video with Tesla. I think Tesla is going to be also an interesting one to watch. So what would I be looking for in Tesla at this point? Right, digestion. Right, it's had a real nice move from 780 to 1100. And if you've been doing this for a while, you know that digestion is actually a good thing. So putting in some type of a bull flag here and then resolving higher, right? Because we don't want to see things get, in my opinion, get overheated to the upside. So a little bit of digestion, kind of a little bit of a regroup, not a give back all the way back to 948, but just digestion, I think would be really good. So that's what I'll be watching for this name. By the way, last point, look at breadth. That also kind of give us a nice clue for the day that today was going to be a little bit different than what we've seen over the last couple of weeks. All right, guys, that's it for today. Have a great night, and I'll see you tomorrow.